everyone, I'm Garden Girl Jen Gallagher and welcome back to Make It Meaningful. So this week I picked a kind of selfish topic, and by that I mean I wanted to accomplish a certain thing with my scrapbook layout this week. And we're going to be talking about advice-based layouts. Now, why did I pick this particular topic? I'll tell you what. I have a teenage daughter who is about to graduate from high school in the next year, which she keeps reminding me about, and I wanted the opportunity to give her some advice in her scrapbooks. And what teenage girl or boy wants you to sit down face to face and have them give you advice? They really don't want to do that. They don't have the time to do that. They really don't care what you say once they turn 16 and 17. So I am going to do it in a scrapbook layout. Sneaky, right? So what we're going to do this week, and here's your challenge, I want you to think about someone that you care about, and it can even be you. I want you to leave them some advice in a scrapbook layout. We're going to do that using some special embellishments and papers to help tell the theme and convey the story. So that is your challenge, and I want you to share that with me in the seed that you'll find on the 2Ps website. So let's go ahead and get started and make an advice-based layout. So to get started, we are going to start with some Simple Stories pattern paper. It is tone-on-tone blue dot on one side and chevron on the other. And then I've cut some dark blue cardstock to fit in the center of this layout. And this is going to be a 12 by 12 layout. Then to the bottom of the layout, I am going to use a piece of border punch that I've used, or rather a piece of paper that I punched with a border punch, and it is a scallop border punch. And we will adhere that just at the very bottom edge of this dark blue pattern paper. And I tried several different types of pattern paper before I settled on the dark blue. And I really wanted something with a lot of color and make this layout pop a little bit. And we're going to do a center design, so everything is going to fall in the center of our layout. So the next thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to create a grid with a bunch of different frames. And I'm going to start with this one from Pebbles, and I will use some others from October Afternoon, but basically there are lots of frames here. You can cut them with your silhouette machine, or you can use pre-made ones. They're chipboard, they're paper. You can even simply mount things onto cardstock or pattern paper, and that will also look like a frame. We'll use a large photo in the center of this Polaroid type frame to make sure that we cover all the edges of the frame. And then this particular frame from Pebbles actually already has adhesive on the frame. So you simply peel off the white backing and then you fold it back in half. And again, we want to make sure we get it exactly covering all of the frame. So I'm going to add adhesive to the back of the frame, and we will place this in the center of the layout. I'm also going to add a white doily behind the frame, so before I press all the way down, I'm going to place the doily kind of off on the bottom 2/3 of the layout. Then I am playing with numbers, and I'm using random bits of advice for this layout, and so I have a die cut that I've cut from my silhouette machine. It is already a cut file but looks exactly like this, and I'm simply going to add adhesive to the back of it. You can also run it through your Xyron runner. And I have cut this from craft cardstock. You could also use a pattern paper to cut any of the shapes or the punched items that I'll show later. But we're going to be playing with numbers a bit today. So I'm going to actually move this down just a bit. I want to overlap this bottom edge slightly. And you'll notice that the border goes across the entire bottom, and it also sticks off the edge just a little bit. Then for something fun and to draw attention to one of the numbers, I have taken a sticker, a chipboard sticker from October Afternoon, and I have placed some pattern paper inside of it. And we are going to place this right on top of that number 5. And then I cut the die cut a little bit bigger from a lighter blue. You can see it's a slightly lighter color, and we are going to place that on top. So I'm looking for opportunities to layer and kind of dress it up a little bit, and we'll just center that right on top here. Now, as I said throughout the layout, we are sharing random bits of advice. So on my computer in a vintage typewriter font, that's actually the name of the font, I printed a little label that says advice number 12, and I just randomly picked numbers. You could actually specifically number them. And we're going to center that right on top of that number 5. So I always like to bring in some pretty die cut shapes, and I am loving the feather trend right now. And for something different and something a little more subtle, I'm going to use some feather die cuts that are cut from vellum. And this particular die cut shape includes all 3 of these feather shapes. And I don't want to add too much adhesive because it does show through. I'll just layer these a little bit. And you can trim off the little quill part of the feather if you don't need that. And we'll just create a vignette of layered feathers. Now you could machine stitch these in place instead for something a little different. You can fold them up for some added dimension and texture. You can do whatever you want. Then to some of the same die cut frames, chipboard frames rather, I have added small photos of my daughter. You can see that I've pre-cut them and they are stickers. And I measured the interior of the frame, but I also measured the exterior and I printed them a little bit larger. If you have a square punch, you could do this same technique, or you can simply use scissors, or you can use a paper cutter, paper trimmer. So I'm starting to kind of overlap some of these frames. So again, I've used a bunch of frames. The chipboard frames are all from the supply list that I will link you on the seed on 2Ps. Some of them contain photos, and some of them I use the exact same lined writing paper, but I printed out some advice on it. You could also handwrite your advice, that's up to you. And there are a lot of different handwriting type fonts in the 2P store. I'll try and link you to a couple of options so that you can see if you already have it on hand, or you can get some more. Again, just creating a grid, and you can use any frames to do this. You could also use circle tags if you like those shapes better. You can use whatever you want, but the idea is that I wanted to frame some of the photos and I wanted to frame some of the actual bits of advice that I'm leaving. Then to the layout, I'm adding some of these tin pins or tin badges or flair, depending on the company. And I'm going to add them throughout because I liked the different things that they said on them. One says seriously, one says just saying, and one says true story. And these are self-adhesive, some are not. These are also from October Afternoon. And then again, I still have some of these little bits that say advice number. And I want to add them to some of these little advice boxes. And I just chose a few random bits of advice that I wanted to give my daughter. And again, you're choosing someone that you want to give advice to. To dress it up a little bit, I have 2 little sequins, and I'm going to use some glue dots to hold those in place. Just some small glue dots will hold sequins, or wet adhesive will also do the same thing. Just kind of overlap that a little bit. Then one of my favorite new punches that I've acquired, this is a 2-inch butterfly punch. And from the same blue cardstock that I used for the 5, I've punched a butterfly from yellow pattern paper, and then I went ahead and matched the 2 cardstock colors. I'll adhere these to the frame. I like to add little bits of feminine details to my projects. And then to give the illusion of an antenna for these particular butterflies, I have cut a small strip of craft cardstock to go down the center of each butterfly. It's just really small, just cut with my paper trimmer. But it gives the illusion of an antenna, and it kind of gives it a little bit more of a realistic look. Just some adhesive down the center. And then I wanted to bring in some of that red from the top frame up here. So what I did is I took a button and I've tied it with twine. It's just craft twine. You could also use a baker's twine, whatever you have on hand. And I tied it in a bow, and we'll cut off the excess parts of that twine. A little bit of feminine detail there. Now to the top, I want to add some photo corners. There are several in the store. I do like these tan ones from Canson, and they are self-adhesive. You could also do your own by using a paper punch. A square paper punch will do the same thing. And then to the bottom, I wanted to add a title, and I'm going to do that with some letter stickers. And I have some glittered letter stickers from American Crafts, and I will lightly place them on, and I'm going to spell out the word advice. Now, when I was looking for the letter stickers, I could not find an additional letter E. So I'll show you what you can do when you are missing a letter or a number. What you'll want to do is you'll want to find a letter that is close. And I have an F. And then I found a little line, and I want to make sure that it's about the same length. So I'm going to trim it off, and that will form my E. So we'll glue it together so it looks nice and good, but there's no reason why you can't manipulate your letter stickers a little bit. So I'm going to adhere those with some glue dots. So now that I have glued them down, you can see how I've formed the title. Now the blue looked a little plain to me, and I happen to have some yellow sewing thread in my sewing machine, so I'm going to stitch a little bit on here, and then I'll show you what it looks like. If you do not have a sewing machine or are not comfortable doing this, you could do a couple of things. You can add some yellow mist, you could add some tone-on-tone mist, you could do some hand stitching with some yellow thread, lots of options to bring in some yellow. You could even do some tone-on-tone stamping with this background blue paper, but it looks a little plain right now, so my style is to add some machine stitching. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I want you to see it's kind of a messy stitch that I've done down both sides, and it is not completely equal. It is a little messy, it's kind of relaxed, which I think fits this layout. Once I did that, I realized I still need a yellow element up here. So I used the punch that I used in last week's video, and I simply punched out a half label shape, and we'll go ahead and attach that just at the top here. And we'll add a little bit more machine stitching there. So once again, I added the stitching at the top. So there you have a layout that includes bits of advice for my daughter. Again, don't forget the challenge is for you to do a layout that includes advice to someone that you care about. Make sure to upload it to the correct challenge gallery by marking the correct box. And then I can't wait to see what you're doing. Be sure to watch last week's video so you can kind of see the goals and things that we're going to be doing in this class this year. And look for a new video next week.